Brought to you by MuleSoft, provider of the industry-leading Anypoint platform for APIs.
My name is Cristiano, and I'll be talking about how to make your hackathon matter. So this is me. That's where I work. I'm not going to talk too much about that, except for the hack days that we run. Any of you here been to Hack Day before? Cool. Who here has no idea what a Hack Day is? Okay, cool. So we have some basic knowledge, which is good. Otherwise, this is just going to go over your head and be very confusing. So I have this really weird job. I kind of work in the sky. I kind of fly over to all the places. This is where I was last week. This is Singapore. This is like an amazing building. This has got like 3 hotels with like a pool. I didn't go there. It cost 50 quid to go to the pool. It's one of those pools that looks like it goes over the edge. It's called an infinity pool. Who knew that? Anyway, this year, today I'm here, which is in Gregland. It sounds like a really amazing job. It can be like this, but basically what it means is I'm basically an expert in microwave meals. Have you guys ever been on a plane where you get a microwave meal and you have no idea whether or not it's beef or chicken? Yeah, that's my life. And I like to wear weird things on my face. This was in the zoo. So why do I do that? So I work for Braintree, which is part of PayPal, and we run this hackathon series called Battle Hack, which is happening in 14 cities this year worldwide. I also run, outside of that, I run my own hackathons and events. Last year I ran Hacked.io, which was 500 people in the O2 here. Anybody here who was there? Awesome one. Was it awesome? It was pretty awesome, right? Cool, so I kind of like hackathons. So I'm kind of very passionate about the whole hacker kind of lifestyle. And I started kind of thinking when I wrote this title, the original title was Hacking Through Time and Space. And I kind of started thinking where does the whole hacking kind of come from? And I thought this guy must be the first hacker, right? I mean, he cheated death. I mean, that must be, it took him 4 days, which technically is longer than most hack days, but, or was it 4 days? I don't even know. But when I did some research, there was actually, there's actually some really cool documents out there. There's the Hacker Code of Ethics, which is a really good document if you want to understand kind of what hacking really means to people. The URL is a bit long, but this will be published. And it says a couple of things. One of them, it says, access to computers and everything which might teach you something about the way the world works. And I think to most hackers, this is very important, but it kind of goes hand in hand with how we kind of, the way we explore things. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand together with this, right? Is that we need to be able to play with things to really figure out how they work. We need to be able to test things and try them out to figure out how to do it wrong before we can do it right. So for a lot of us, it's as much about process as it is about product. This is the only TED Talk I'm ever going to mention in any of my presentations. I love this TED Talk. It's about Ken Robinson, who gives a talk about how our education system is very kind of flawed towards kind of very hard science and forgets about creativity, and how as we grow up, we kind of lose more and more of our creative skills as we go to more and more specific kind of hard science and PhDs, etc. And it's a very interesting talk. It's a very short one. But to me, it's part of that hacker culture to not just do the things we've been educated to do, but go and venture outside of that and be creative and be silly. So the next thing in the Code of Ethics is that all information should be free. And I started looking through what's been written about free information and how far back we can go. And it's amazing how far back you can go, that people were kind of talking about kind of the open source movement. This is actually from Rabbi Writings. It's kind of a document that explains the different kinds of people, and it says that the person who is righteous is the one that says that what is mine is yours and what is yours is yours. That's exactly the whole open source movement described in in a piece of document that is about 2,000 years old. And then it says we should mistrust authority. Now, I'm going to come back to that later. So instead, I'm going to just put up a picture of the French Revolution, because that kind of explains that very well. But it's the, it's the notion of not just assuming that what is and should be. And it says that hackers should be judged by their hacking and not by their degree, their age, their race, or precision. And this document was written in the 70s, and it's kind of ironic because this is exactly when Alan Turing was kind of getting the most pain in his life. But of course, this document was written at a time when it was degree, age, race, position, but you can add a whole bunch of extra things to that, your sex, your sexual orientation, etc. And the final thing it says is you can create art and beauty on a computer. So when I started looking at like beautiful computers, I came across this thing, which is, I'm not going to try and pronounce that. I'm not Greek. This is basically a device that the Greek used about 2,000 years ago to, it's kind of a little box about yay big that basically help you, help sailors navigate by the stars and kind of predict when there would be eclipses, etc. It doesn't look like much, but then one of the watchmakers kind of recreated it, and this is what it looks like. This is actually in watch size, so about that size. That's gorgeous. And that's an actual clock that they actually build it as. So that's, you can build really beautiful things with computers. Sorry, that's the final one. And computers can change your life. This kind of goes back to the whole making sure that your information is free and making sure that you spread the information forward. We can look at the Egyptians, and they were already sharing information quite actively. This is anybody has any idea what he's doing here? He's not checking him for his eyesight. This is all about bloodletting. So that's basically the principle of letting somebody's blood drain right to the point that somebody's about to die, just to get all the bad disease out of your system. It sounds like a really bad idea by current standards, but actually by that time, that was actually a really good way to get the really, really nasty stuff out of your system. I don't know what the survival rate of that is, but it can't be very high. If your doctor does prescribe this, please call the police. So that's kind of the past of hacking, and then I started to kind of look a bit more forward at the kind of the revolution of hacking and kind of the more modern day kind of interpretation of it. And it really all started off when we really got access to real proper computers and really started to get access to really kind of hardware that did more than just pipe out some steam. Anybody know who this guy is? It's interesting. I don't think most people do. This is John Draper, and he kind of started the whole phreaking movement. And the phreaking movement is kind of the thing that kind of kicked off the kind of the black hat hacking kind of movement before it was called hacking. So for those of you who don't know, phreaking is the principle of kind of using a whistle to kind of fake the phone lines to start making international phone calls. So you kind of, there was these cereal boxes that had these whistles, and this guy figured out that that whistle made exactly the right noise. Say again?
Was he Captain Crunch?
Yes, I was going to come to that. See, he knows that. Okay, good. Points to you, sir. So he's Captain Crunch because it came in the Crunch, in something Crunch packages. So yeah, cereals. And you could use that to basically fake the system to basically automatically dial you through for free to start making free phone calls. And then there was a few guys who basically turned that into a little box because it was kind of finicky. You kind of had to really time it right. This is the blue box, which was made by some guys, to be specific, these guys. And I think most of us know who those are. And where this all ties together is these guys were all part of this group called the Homebrew Computer Club. And the Homebrew Computer Club, I mean, it still goes around today. Let me quickly pull up my notes so that I actually know the dates. So it was founded in 1975, and basically just a whole bunch of hardware enthusiasts that got their hands on the first kind of computer parts and started putting them together and started to play with them. It kind of changed its name since then a few times to the 6800 Club, which was basically the Motorola 6800. And then it kind of changed from there a few times to 6808, and then every time they released a new chip, but then they soon realized that wasn't a very good idea. So they went back to 6800 Club. And it's still kind of, there's still a variation of this that kind of exists today. But these kind of clubs inspired a lot of other people. So there's the Chaos Computer Club. Anybody here know the Chaos Computer Club? A few hands. Cool. So the Chaos Computer Club started in somewhere in the 80s in Germany, kind of as a rebellious movement against the government. And it was all built on kind of the fact that all information should be free, kind of going back to those codes of ethics and very much that mistrust of authority. And there's a couple of things that came out of that. A lot of hacks came out of there, a lot of proof of concepts on how to kind of break certain systems and that certain systems weren't safe came out of that. But probably one of the most important things that came out of that was WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks was originally announced at Chaos Computer, at one of the conferences that they have. They have I think that yearly they have a conference, and every 4 years they have a camp. So that's what WikiLeaks came from. You know, but really, the question is like, how did we, you know, where does the whole hackathon hack day come from, right? So let's have a look at that. I started my hackathons at Yahoo Hack Day in 2007. Anybody here who was there? No? Cool, there was one person in the previous time I gave this talk. This is Open Hack London, which was organized by kind of the Yahoo and BBC. It was amazing. It was at Alexandra Palace. Anybody ever been to Alexandra Palace? It used to be like an old radio broadcast center, and it has like this massive like transmission tower on top of it, and it's an old listed building, so they've got really good security for like if it catches fire. So if it catches fire, the roof opens, basically to make it easier to kind of start throwing some water in. Of course, what happened there was that the lightning struck the tower twice, completely confused the system, and the system decided to open the roof. Of course, it was raining, and we were sitting there with all our laptops. And at the time, I had like a MacBook, and that was like the most expensive thing I had. Yeah. And for a lot of people, that was the most expensive thing they had. We were like running like crazy. It was quite funny because some people were just not sitting under a hole, so they were like perfectly fine, and everybody else just had to scramble.
I know those guys.
You know those guys? Yeah. They probably remember that. Is that Matt Harris who I'm looking at from the back or not? Okay. It was a really good event. And the thing that I learned at this event and also at Mashed, which happened the year after that, is that British people are crazy. You guys are crazy. Like I've been traveling all around the world, and nobody else does crazy hacks. It's the British that do the crazy hack. This is Ewan Spence. If you don't know him, you should look him up. He's done quite a few silly hacks. This is him. He brought a lot of wood, well, MDF basically, and he built an airplane, and he flew around the world in 24 hours. And with that, I mean they mapped their position on a Google map. They also showed that on the web, and you could track where they were. And all they were doing is just controlling with a little joystick where they were on Earth. And they had very specific rules. When they had to swap pilot, they actually had to fly to where there was an actual airfield, stop there, stop the plane, and then get out of the airplane and get back in again. It was a fun. This is when Google Maps was pretty new. It was a very interesting way of playing with it, and they were very much insane. He also built a. He basically took a quadcopter at the time. Built an entire track for the quadcopter, used VR glasses, well, not VR glasses, basically tied a phone to his face, and basically then the quadcopter had a camera at the front, and basically did like you had to pilot the actual quadcopter through the track, very much like that game. What's it called? Oh man, can't come up with the name. There's a game that basically looks exactly like that. It was really hard to control and really stupid, but it was very funny. But where does the term hackathon come from, right? So the term hackathon kind of came up in two places at the same time. One of them was at Sun to kind of create something for the Palm V in Java. Anybody had a Palm here? Ah, we're showing our age. And the other one was at OpenBSD. They ran their first hackathon also in '99, basically to try and kind of get around some of the import restrictions of encryption software in '99. I don't know if you still remember, but I think the first, like, not the iMac, but the Power Mac, it was technically an illegal device because it was more powerful than a supercomputer at the time, or what was at that time still quantified as a supercomputer. So there were some problems with how do you get around those kind of import-export restrictions. But the real place where, in my eyes, hackathons really started was at Yahoo. Yahoo had been running kind of their internal hack days, and they called it hack days, not hackathons, and they ran it internally kind of as an effort to get their engineering team to try out new things. And then they turned it into what they called open hack, which was basically they're opening it up to the external community and bring those people in to do crazy things too. And to them, it was very much like the Google 20% time. It was just a way for them to kind of figure out how to engage their engineers in thinking outside of the box and trying out new things and seeing where their platform could go. And it's quite interesting because this actually came out this year. It's kind of it's a website that basically lists a whole lot of companies that have a very open culture towards hacking. They run their own hackathons. They run their internal hackathons. Because so many young students, young new employees are so getting used to kind of the hacking culture and kind of hackathons, you know, they are actively looking for places that promote this kind of behavior. We at Braintree, we haven't really done this. We haven't really signed this yet, but we do, you know, at PayPal we have quite an important open source movement. We're re-engineering our entire platform, and we've open sourced the entire stack that we're using, and we're working very closely with companies like Netflix to make sure we're not, you know, reinventing the wheel. And you know, we even hired a head of open source recently, so you know, we're taking this pretty serious in kind of the other direction, and I do see us at some point, you know, put a pledge like that in place. So to go back to the question of how do you make your hackathon really matter, I've been involved in quite a few, like I said. So this is the 10 that we ran last year. So 10 hackathons we did. I went to about 6, I think. It was a lot of fun, lots of different cities. If you want to know the difference between all the hackers, I can talk to you for that for hours too. The main prize is that each of these we would send to San Francisco to our finals, where they could win a big prize. But we also had some nice prizes locally. So each winner of each local stage won one of these hacks. Because, you know, it's battle hacks, so you need battle axes. We had a really cool character, which is that guy. So this year we're doing it again. We have a new guy, which is that one, which is no way supposed to look like my boss. They claim it's not, but yeah, everybody seems to. See, what's that? What's that? Definitely the same guy. Definitely the same guy. Anyway, these are the cities that we're doing this year. We just finished Singapore, so this slide is out of date. Mexico City is happening this weekend. We're doing 14. We have a new axe. It's bigger. It's also not sharp. Last year we got the other one. It came from China and it was very sharp, and we had to get it blunted. It was still sharp. This year we have this one, which is made in Spain, and it looks like a Viking. That makes no sense. It's a lot taller. It's a lot heavier. You can probably still kill somebody with it, just not with the fact that it's sharp. We've brought them on planes. We've brought them into Russia. I have a picture of John Lunn, who you just saw before. We have a video of him standing with one of the axes from last year on the Red Square, and it's just the fact that he's still alive confuses me. So yeah, we're going back to Moscow this year. It's basically our attempts to get our boss killed. Like that's basically what we're doing. It's the only way we get promoted. But the one thing, the one thing that I realized wherever we go, to all the countries, is that people love putting stuff on their face. I don't remember who this is. This is one of my colleagues. This is one of our guys who runs basically PayPal in Central Eastern Europe. This is one of our guys in Germany. Basically, it doesn't matter where you go. This is one of the guys in Canada. Even the Canadians love it. Oh, here's a Canadian joke. How do you know that Canadians are good REST clients? Because they're really good at curling. Sorry, I heard that one today. That's a Canadian. His name is John Moose. This is actually the guy who creates all of our APIs, who's in charge of all of our APIs. He's probably the only one that looks actually dangerous with an axe. All the other ones just look a little bit too geeky. But yeah, why should you run a hackathon? There's a couple of reasons to run a hackathon. But there's a couple of things you need to take into consideration when you do go and run your hackathon. And that is that I did the math, I think I've been to about 60 hackathons by now, over the past like 5 years, 6 years, no, 7 years. So 50 hackathons over 7 years. And there are a lot of hackathons happening in every city. London especially is absolutely saturated. The Valley is saturated with hackathons. And I can tell you, there's a couple of things that hackathon attendees don't want anymore. And one of them is this: cheap pizza. If you go to hackathon every other week, you don't want more cheap pizza. Who here likes good food? Who here likes sushi? See, who here likes McDonald's? Exactly. Same thing applies for beer. Like just beer. It's not very inclusive for the people who might not A, be alcohol drinkers, or B, alcoholics. And especially, like, I don't know, I'm Dutch, but if you give me Heineken, sorry, that's not a beer, right? Like, that's just, it's not nice anymore at some point. You want something else. You wouldn't mind just a tea at some point, or a Red Bull to stay awake, but beer just gets old. I'm going to skip this one. I'm going to skip that one, because it's kind of out of order, in the wrong place. So the reason why you should run a hackathon, there's a couple of reasons. There's a couple of reasons to run a hackathon, but probably one of them is not to recruit people. I know it sounds very easy, but you got to think that the majority of the people that do come to your hackathons probably already have a job. Now, this differs to the events that you go to. Like, there is this event called MLH, the Major League Hacking. This is the majority of it are students. But it still doesn't mean that they want to work for your job, and it still doesn't mean that you might want to just pretend like it's a tech event, and instead 90% of your people who are there are recruiters. If you want to recruit people, inspire them. They'll apply for jobs if they think your company is cool, right? So let's go back to the previous slides. I think communication really is king in this, which is that if you are looking to recruit people, make that very clear, because that means the people who don't want a job won't show up to your event, and you won't piss off people. Because trust me, the worst thing that can happen is that somebody gets annoyed about your hackathon and tweets about it, and then the entire marketing budget that you've just spent on running this entire event goes down the drain. Also, the thing that you got to think about is that a hack that somebody creates at a hackathon is not an app. If you want to invest in their app as a business model after the event, again, make that clear that that's the purpose of your event. But to the majority of people that come to hackathons, all they really want to do is play around. Is play around with these things that we talked about before. Try to discover new process. Try to build an interesting product. But majority of the time, it's just to get familiar with your API. I've been to quite a few hack days where I built a really cool thing, and I got some completely misinformed VC to talk up to me afterwards and say, I want to invest in your product. And I'm like, it's not a product, it's a hack. To really build this out, it will take another 3 months. I have a really interesting job. I don't believe in this product. Why would I? Yes, but, you know, and then they get angry with you for not wanting to invest. And it's insane. If you want that to happen, then don't run a hackathon. Call it something else. Call it a startup bootcamp. Call it a appathon. Call it something else. Now, the other thing you need to consider when you want to run a hackathon is to include everybody. And this might sound trivial, and still people get it wrong over and over and over again. Hackers should be judged by the hacking, not their degree, age, race, position, sex, sexual orientation, gender, whether or not they drink alcohol or not, where their religion is, it shouldn't matter. I mean, this is what happened at TechCrunch Disrupt last year or the year before. Somebody actually built this app. I'm not going to say the name because it doesn't deserve the name. Yahoo, the ones who actually started running these events, who have done such a great job, got absolutely into trouble a couple of years ago when they went to Thailand, and they had some light entertainment in the evening. It doesn't fit in, because there are women in technology, there are women present at these events. This is actually, this was a party that was at, Google it, you can find like 1 million examples of bad stuff. But there are women at these events. This is actually TechCrunch Disrupt the year after that. And it was a girl presenting a hack that she made, and she was under 18. She'd made something amazing. If that other app would have been presented there, it might have scared her away. It might have turned her off from pursuing a career in tech. And we don't want that. The tech community should be open to everybody. So in order to do that, there's been a new movement over the last few months, is to kind of have a code of conduct. So to the Battle Hack kind of program, we added this code of conduct, which is quite nice. It's conf.codeofconduct.org, which is kind of for conferences, which is really cool, except for it's very specific to conferences. So we kind of got the message from some people that it was a bit minimal effort. So I kind of went maximum effort, and I made hack.codeofconduct.org, which, beside being rewritten to kind of make the copy reflect hack days and hackathons, it also has this ability to kind of customize it to your event. So if you want to run a hackathon, you can go in, you can pledge your support, but at the same time add your details. So this is for Battle Hack London. There's basically one that is linked up from our website, which actually has my details on it, so that if somebody feels like, you know, the code of conduct is being broken, they can actually contact me. So it's to kind of provide them with that safe place to kind of get in contact and feel like they have a place to reach out to. All of this kind of came out of a project that I've been involved with a couple of months ago, I think it's like a year or two ago, called the Hack Day Manifesto. If you are thinking of running a hack day, I very much suggest that you have a good look at that, because it's basically a really long document that you can basically treat as a checklist as what to do to run your hackathon. The way I'd look at it is, you know, you're okay to do things that aren't in here, but if you do, then again, communication is king. Explain to your hack day attendees that you are going to do things differently. So just to give you an example, if you don't have the budget to pay for every meal, tell people. They'll be fine. They're going to go outside, they're going to get some pret, they're going to come back, and they'll continue hacking again. Leaving them waiting for 3 hours, waiting for food, and then telling them there's no food, that's going to piss them off. And that's going to get you a lot more bad press than it's worth. The cool thing is there's a lot of hack days like MLH, I talked about them already, who've really started adopting all of these things. They've really ran off the Hack Day manifesto. They've added the code of conduct to their site and everything, and there's a whole bunch more. So if you do, let me know. I'd love to know and have some more examples in here. Now, the big question probably for most of you is like, should you get involved with the Hack Day yourself, or should you run your own? Now, I think an API is your business card, right? So you should not get involved with a hackathon if you don't think your API is ready. Because for a lot of these people, you're not going to get their attention twice. You're going to get their attention once, and they're going to love it, and then they're going to use it and use it again. But same with like most products. If they try it once and it really, really sucks, or it's broken, or the server is down half of the event, they're not going to come back the next event. They're just going to try one of the other API partners and try and win their prizes. But there is something to say about running your own event, or running your own hackathon, even if it's not just about your APIs. So I run this other event called Barcamp, which is an unconference, and there's been 10 of them in London. So 9. The 10th is this weekend. But when you ask people, they don't say, "Oh, which event were you at?" "Oh, I was at the." Which one was number 3? Was that the one where PayPal sponsors? No, they don't say that. They say, "Was that the one at Google? That was the one at The Guardian. That was the one at IBM." There is something magical about bringing people into your workplace and show them your culture, your company, outside of your API, outside of just what you present outwards. Show them who you are. This is the place where you influence them to apply for a job at your company. This is not where you recruit them. Companies do this very bad, where they have like 20 people in the office kind of ganging up on hackers and going, "Are you interested in a job in security?" Like, that's not going to work, right? That's just going to scare people away again. But just providing them a nice atmosphere to work for 48 hours and really be completely immersed in your environment, it's going to make them remember. They're going to say, remember that hackathon that was at your company's office. They're going to remember that, and they're going to tell that to their friends over and over again for years to come. So why do we do Hack Days at PayPal? Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, because we're crazy, and we all kind of come from a Hack Day culture. But for us, it's about promoting our APIs. We just want people to come and use our APIs, and we want them to get experience. And one of the reasons why we get involved with hackathons in the first place is because developers are lazy, right? Who here is a developer? Who here thinks developers are lazy? Yeah, right? Exactly, we're lazy. If you ask us, okay, we need SMS integration into our platform, they're going to go, okay, well, I've played with Twilio at a Hack Day, I'm going to integrate Twilio. If they're going to go, I need payment integration into a platform, when they work at a business, they're going to go, oh, well, I know PayPal, I'm going to try PayPal. Or I know Braintree, I'm going to use Braintree. They're lazy. They're going to try whatever they know. So giving them that experience at a Hack Day in exchange for some prizes is a really good way to give them that experience to start off with. Now, we do run our own hackathons because there is a very different range of hackathons in how much effort has been put into them. There's the really kind of grassroots events, and then there are the events where there's been a bit more money involved, and they've been able to add some class to the event. At PayPal, we try to really be kind of in that league. We try to add a lot of class to our events. We have nice food. I think some people have kind of dubbed it the foodathons because it's just food after food after food. Whether or not that results into good hacks, I'm not 100% sure. But it's been entertaining them. We do a couple of cool things, like we have the Axes, which is just a fun way of actually just making it a little bit more insane than it really has to be. But we also do things like, actually provide people places to sleep. hackathons don't need to be 48 hours of no sleep. If, some of us, you go and have a comfortable nap. This is actually at the World Finals. We just had some air mattresses and some nice places where you could actually just lie down for like half an hour, have a bit of a good nap, power nap, reset your brain and get started again. We're not expecting these hackers to be inhuman or superhuman. So the final thing that I'm going to kind of give to you is that if you're going to run your own hackathon, track your success. Track what you're doing. Track how many people you had. Build up a community. Keep track of, build up a mailing list. Keep track of how many hacks they've done. Start measuring all these things. Start talking to people. Send out a survey afterwards and ask them what they thought about the event, what they thought about your API. Talk to them, engage them, and really communicate with them about your product. There's quite a few hack days that I've been to where the API sucked and none of the actual representatives of the company were there. That's a waste of money. You're supposed to be there to figure out what's wrong with your product. You're supposed to be there to figure out what's good with your product. If you're not there to talk to the hackers, then why are you getting involved? Then you could just as well put some banners up on the subway, right? It doesn't make much sense. So to sum things up, live by the code, take the code of ethics, and try to make sure that you don't break the code of ethics while you're trying to promote your product. Share knowledge and share experience. So share your own knowledge and your own experience, not just your own product. Thank you very much.
Brought to you by MuleSoft, provider of the industry-leading AnyPoint platform for APIs.